Exhausted and Excluded: Burnout, Toxicity, and the Black Woman's Reality in Toxic Workplaces. If you're a Black woman and you feel burnt, or as my friend says, crispy in the workplace, and that you don't belong for some reason, you just don't feel like you belong, this is a conversation for you. You have a conversation with two Black women therapists who are also toxic job survivors. And we're going to talk about the experience of being exhausted, but also feeling that you don't belong in that toxic work environment, by talking about what is that like, what are the signs, but also talking about some ways you can do your options, right?
Mhm.
Because when we think about being in these environments, it's important for us to really consider what our options are. I don't want us to feel like we're stuck in these work environments, even though temporarily it might feel like we're stuck. I want us to always remember we have options, okay? And I see already, Cynthia, hey, happy sisterhood giving. Yes, yes, to everyone. Yes. So if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been licensed for over 20 years. I'm also a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm also the co-founder with Marissa Price of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. If you would like to access the 2025 replay, that is available in the description section of this YouTube video. Also, the waiting list of the 2026 Summit is available as well in the YouTube description section. Also, just two quick announcements for the Butterfly YouTube membership community. This Friday, we'll be having a private sound bowl healing session with a Black woman this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific time. So look in our membership area for the posts. So you'll get the Zoom information for that. So that is this Friday. So keep an eye out for that. And as a reminder, our book club is Rest is Resistance, and that's December 10th. Okay. So without further ado, I want to introduce you all to my wonderful guest today, Dr. Whitley. Dr. Whitley, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, yes, yes. So, hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Whitley Grant-Goodman. I work with high achieving Black women who are exhausted from carrying everyone else's emotional labor. So, I've been a mental health therapist for over a decade now. I help my clients reclaim their energy, reduce burnout, and show up authentically, both at work and at home. I'm located in North Carolina, and I'm so excited to be on this live today, talking to you all about this very, very important topic.
Yes, yes, yes. So as I said earlier, if you are in a workplace and you are feeling crispy because you are burnt up with the
Mhm.
exhaustion of dealing with the toxicity in the workplace, it's a conversation for you. And hey, Dr. O, I see you. Thank you for joining. So I wanted to talk a little bit about toxic work environments and how that can contribute to burnout. But first, I just want to tell everybody how I met Dr. Whitley. So Dr. Whitley and I are both a part of the Goldman Sachs 1 Million Black Women Black in Business program, a very rigorous, intense program. If you are interested, and Cheryl, hey Cheryl. So Cheryl was my guest last Sunday, and she is also part of the program. So if you are interested and you're a business owner, a Black woman business owner, and you would like to accelerate your business, I would strongly suggest that you check out the Goldman Sachs 1 Million Black Women Black in Business program. As I said, it's a very rigorous program. We're coming to the end of the program, so check it
Yes.
out online. It's completely free. Free, free, free. Okay. So, Dr. Whitley, can you please share about an experience that you've had in which you felt burnout in a workplace and that you did not belong?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the experience that I've had, and it's kind of like multiple experiences at once. So it's multiple toxic jobs happening at one. So I'll first say that I started off. I grew up in a predominantly Black town, Black neighborhood. I went to a HBCU for undergrad, and then again from graduate school. So I always had my experiences and my identity affirmed.
Hmm.
But my first predominantly white workplaces, which something different was showed to me. I experienced microaggressions, micromanagement, and colleagues who, while this institution primarily did work a lot with Black students, just the everyday interactions with me obviously made my colleagues uncomfortable. So I ended up leaving that job, didn't stay there. So it's just a toxic environment for me, again, unexpected, because here I am in a counseling space, right? So for me, I have high expectations for folks in those helping professions, because we spend tens of thousands of dollars, get all types of hours, all licenses and everything to become therapists. So I just
Mhm.
had a different expectation. So I just felt very
Right.
shocked in that environment. So I left that job, went to the next workplace. So this was right when COVID started, right
Mhm.
after everything unfolded with George Floyd. And again, just very eye-opening time. And we ended up doing like a anti-racist activity, just went completely left. People felt empowered to say racist things out loud.
Oh,
Yes, I did not feel protected by leadership.
wait. These are therapists?
Yes, yes, therapists.
Wow.
And I'm just
Wow.
mind blown, like what is happening? And I kind of felt like what Patricia Hill Collins described as an outsider within. So of course
Mhm.
I'm in this space
Mm.
because I am a therapist as well, but I just very much felt like felt like an outsider. So it was at that moment that things kind of shifted for me. Because at the same time I was concurrently working on my PhD. So
Mhm.
that inspired me to completely change my research. So I started, as I noticed the pattern. So but as I get my PhD and developing myself as a researcher, I'm noticing these same patterns from this first toxic job are showing up this second one. So now I'm
Mhm.
like, what are other Black women who are working in predominant white environments, what are they experiencing? So my dissertation ended up focusing on Black women navigating racial trauma, belonging, authenticity, all the things that I'm doing professionally, all the things that I experienced in. So it didn't just affect me professionally, it also followed me home. It just created
Mhm.
this idea, like you said, of burnout, feeling crispy, like you
Yeah.
have described, emotional labor. It was just a lot for me to show up in those spaces. And again, really emphasizing, especially as a therapist in this space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a lot to unpack. So I want to try to
Yeah.
start unpacking some of this.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that you talked about was the irony of, as a mental health professional,
Mm-hmm.
that many of us experience toxicity in the workplace, and it's often mind blowing that
Mm-hmm.
we are in the healing space
Yes.
and we encounter toxicity from other people who are so-called in the healing space.
Mm-hmm.
So we're encountering this, and then we're still tasked to still go out and heal people. So it's like,
Yes.
wait, I'm experiencing trauma from so-called mental health professionals, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm tasked to help treat trauma with clients, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy thinking. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing that you talked about was that this really impacted you not only at work, but it impacted you in other ways. So
Mm-hmm.
can we talk a little bit about that, because I've talked on my YouTube channel a lot about my own healing journey, and that
Mm-hmm.
it didn't just impact me individually, it
Mm-hmm.
impacted everybody who knew me, because
Mm-hmm.
they saw how I was being harmed. They felt helpless and hopeless. Like, it just impacted everybody who cared about me. So can you
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about how that impacted you and other people who cared about you as well?
Yeah, yeah. So I say one of the main things that showed up for me physiologically in response was this being very irritable. So of
Mm,
course I have this negative attitude, and it's kind of like a byproduct where the people around me were experiencing, outside of work, was experiencing this as well, because I just felt very frustrated and overwhelmed with my experiences. And then people just struggling, my support system was struggling, trying to figure out how they were going to help me. Like there was this show. I'm not sure everyone in your audience, but there was a show back in the day called How to Be a Millionaire. How to Be a Millionaire, and it was, do you want to be a millionaire? You would phone a friend. I wish I could phone my mom right now, and she could give a witness testimony, eyewitness testimony to the things that I was experiencing, because I
mm,
probably vented to her the most about just
mm.
feeling very frustrated and
Yeah,
overwhelmed with the experiences I was having at work. And
yeah.
now it is impacting relationships with others around me, because again,
Mhm,
people were just struggling with to figure out how can you support this person, especially when you think about your goals, and me wanting to be in this environment for so long, and me starting my
mm.
graduate program with the intention of going into college counseling, now to finally been in this space and just having all these negative experiences that I just did not expect and didn't
Right.
really feel fully prepared for.
At that part, right? Like, nobody in graduate school
Mhm.
ever told me that I would experience this coming out of graduate school, that you would encounter people who would be so deeply insecure that they would try to put you in your place. Like, of course, we all know about racism, of course, right? But not the degree to which that we experience it when we went out into the field from our so-called colleagues and so-called supervisors and so-called managers. Just the level of it, particularly in the mental health field, is very disturbing. And the lack of self-awareness of these so-called supervisors. And, and the thing about it is with mental health professionals, you have a sense of expectation that you have a level of self-awareness. But the fact that these people don't, it's scary, right? Because you're like, wait a minute, what's wrong with you? You don't have the self-awareness, what's going on with you? But the other thing you talked about was that you grew up in a Black neighborhood. You went to an HBCU, like I did. Went to HBCU for undergrad and graduate school. How did that experience impact you as you go into this space where you're experiencing microaggressions and all these other things? How did that help you in some ways or impact you?
Yeah, I would say it was very helpful because when we talk about this idea of authenticity in the work that I do with my clients and even trying to show up authentically myself, I felt like I've already was doing that, right? So because I knew very early on, even in childhood, my parents did a very good job on educating me on Black history and all the things that might not have shown up in the textbooks at school. I had all of these outside of experiences, and then it was just constantly reaffirmed. So I felt like I knew who I was truly. So while these experiences did impact me mentally because it was a situation I would like, just an environment wasn't really had experience in, it was still a situation I was very true to myself and felt very authentic and already knowing who I was in that moment. So it didn't necessarily like break, it didn't break me because I had an idea of who I was truly. But again, I didn't have those typical experience because that's not the environments that I'm normally a part of.
Yes. I completely agree with you. I feel that, my upbringing, going to Spelman, like that was like a protective factor for me because I knew my worth. I knew my value. I knew like about my history. I knew all these things. So when these people started treating me in this way in the workplace, I was like, first of all, what are you doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know my worth, but they kept trying to make me feel like I was less than. And the more they did that, the more I was like, what is wrong with you? It wasn't a reflection of, oh, I think that I'm less than. But I think that really speaks to the difference of if you don't know your own internal worth, as opposed to when you're keep looking for that external validation, right? So when you know that internal worth, then you're less likely to be devastated, right? Or just like, oh my God. So did you at any point, and this kind of goes together the next question, did you at any point at these jobs you're talking about, did you at any point feel that you'd worked so hard to get this job? You thought like, oh, this is the job I want to have. And did you feel at any point that I don't want to leave this job because I worked so hard to get here and this is part of who I am. This is my identity. Did you feel that at any point? And did it make it hard to leave?
I say no, it didn't. It didn't make it hard to leave necessarily. It just made me want to rethink things, right? So, of course, in the work that we do, if we have and this is like a more extreme example, but if we have a client who's experiencing extreme forms of, let's say, suicidal ideation, right? We are establishing a prevention plan for them. We're establishing a safety plan. So that's almost like when I think about a toxic job and kind of from a sustainability place, what do I need to do to get me to the goal that I want to be in? Because now I realize that while this might have been part of my journey, I can't stay here too long, right? This is just going to be a bump in the road. Maybe I need to leave a little bit quicker than I had planned. So I need to figure out what does a sustainability plan look like to be able to stay in this space. So one of the things that I would do in that space is constantly weigh the pros and cons. So the pros were the network, the benefits. This job was helping me pay for my tuition. This job was giving me a retirement plan that a person in their 20s, early 30s probably wouldn't do independently. So, and then the different, like again, the network and just even being able to be experience this so I could know what pathway I wanted to shift and pivot into was
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I took away from this job. So I already knew it. I think as I started experiencing more of those physiological symptoms, like pulling up in the parking lot, feeling sick and just giving a headache, feeling overwhelmed, feeling very irritable, I had to think to myself, I said, you know what, you have a plan, right? When I started noticing those symptoms in myself, it was probably I left this toxic job in 2023. So like at the top of 2023, I knew, oh, okay, you have about 8 or 9 months left until you are in this fully vested into your retirement plan, because I was working a state job. So I said to myself, what does sustainability look like, and what can you take away from this experience to add to your overall story? So it was kind of like a reframing and a mind shift for me, because like I said, this had been a goal of mine for some time, but I realized after having this experience in now 2 different institutions that I need to rethink and reconfigure and look like what my pathway looks like moving forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because sometimes we can work so hard at something, we get to the so-called job and we think, oh my God, like it's not what I thought. Maybe this is not the profession for me, or maybe I shouldn't do that. And you become very disillusioned, and that can cause some
Mm-hmm.
depression. But what I hear you saying, and this is what the same for me is, I was like, oh, it's not this job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I still love being a psychologist. It's just not this
Mm-hmm.
job. I'm not supposed to be at
Mm-hmm.
this place to do that. And I
Right.
shifted the goal of where I was going to do the work. And so I
Uh-huh.
want Black women to really be able to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it may not be that location. If you see that location is not allowing you to grow, or they're
Mm-hmm.
stifling you, or it's harming you in some way, then
Mm-hmm.
that's not the place for you. And
Mm-hmm.
to start the exit planning process. So I'm
Absolutely.
wondering, you talked about recognizing that, this wasn't the place for me, and, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to start exit planning, I'm going to start doing these different things.
Mm-hmm.
As you were doing that, did you experience any fears
Mm-hmm.
about leaving? Did you experience
Yeah.
any fears?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the things that I think about the one of the Goldman Sachs exercises that we did, we talked about your relationship with money, and for me,
Yes,
it was very much tied to my career. So I don't know about other folks, but my entire life, my parents are baby boomers. So of course, I'm getting this messages. Once you get
mine
this
too.
safe
Mhm.
state job,
Right.
you are supposed to stay
Get
there.
that
You're
good
supposed to stay
job.
there. You're supposed to retire. I remember, I think I started
Yes.
my first job at like 30. I said, okay, at 60, I can retire if I want to. Like, you have this plan,
Hmm.
but when the things start happening to you, it's like, okay, I have to make some shifts. Yeah, it's very scary to leave a job with the benefits and the pros that I was naming, to say, okay, maybe I need to shift into an environment, whether it be educational technology or opening up my own business. And these are very scary spaces because I didn't have much knowledge about either of those, right? So you
Hmm.
think about your professors in graduate school. I remember one of my professors even told me, if you want to make money as a therapist, you need to have multiple streams of income. So I got that message over 10 years ago now. But again, neither these folks were maybe had their own business, but they were full professors. So it looks a lot different when you had your idea of what your pathway might look like versus
Right.
now having some fear of to step out and do this thing that I feel like I really don't have much education on how to navigate. So yeah, definitely a
Hmm.
lot of fears popping up for me when you've been hearing
Hmm.
these messages your whole life, and get you a good state job and you just stay there and grow, and yeah, that's your
Yeah.
pathway.
Yeah. So I got that
Mhm.
message too.
Uh-huh.
So, did you tell people that you were planning to leave? Because the
Mhm.
thing about it is that many of us get these messages from people around us, right? They project their fears of, girl, don't leave that good job. That's a good job.
Yes.
That's a good state job.
Yes.
What you gonna do? You're gonna end up homeless. And they project their fears on us, and it
Uh-huh.
makes us even more fearful of leaving. So,
Yes.
did you tell people you were planning to leave? People around you?
Yeah, yes. I told some folks in my support system and some
Okay.
colleagues and different things like that. And I think people, again, when people, like, you're right, people might project their fears onto you. Like, is it a good job? Do you have a good job? Is it really that bad? Different
Hmm.
things that people might say, because again, I think folks don't know either, right? So if your
Right.
experience
And they're
has not
speaking from
been,
their own experience.
yes, yes. If your experience has been your job, you might even perceive what I'm doing as a better opportunity than what you have. So it's like, okay,
Right.
if you, that's another fear talk, like, okay, Whitley
Yeah.
can't is having a hard time at this place doing this job,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean for me? So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely understand people's perspectives, but it's still like, okay, I still have to do what's best for me at the end of
What's
the day.
best for me? Exactly. So the
Mm-hmm.
takeaway that I want people to hear is sometimes you can kind of test the waters, right? You can tell people,
Yes.
you know what, I'm in this toxic job. See what their response is. If their
Mm-hmm.
response to you is stick it out, you better
Mm-hmm.
stay there, and they start projecting all their fears onto you,
Mm-hmm.
then don't keep telling them that you're planning to exit. Okay. Don't keep
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
if you have people who are supportive around you and like, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
what are your plans? What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's okay to share that with them. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
and I
Absolutely.
and I really appreciate also that you acknowledge the fear, because what I say to people is that I never discount that it's fearful of leaving a job, even a toxic
Mm-hmm.
job. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
even though I hated my job towards the end, like
Mm-hmm.
absolutely
Mm-hmm.
dreaded going there, it
Mm-hmm.
was so much fear of leaving that job. Even psychologists, mentally telling myself, "You
Mm-hmm.
got this," but the fear of
Mm-hmm.
leaving kept
Mm-hmm.
me there, like the fear of how am I going to replace my income, my benefits, what am I going to do, all that kind of stuff, right? So I want us to be clear and say the fear is a normal response,
Mm-hmm.
yet we can still move forward with the fear with planning,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
planning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we are not telling any Black woman just up and leave that job, girl. Just up and leave.
Right.
Everything gonna be okay. Just up and leave a job. We're
Uh-huh.
talking about planning to leave a job.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when we think
Yes.
about your work as a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
can we talk about for the Black women clients that you work with, what
Mm-hmm.
have been some of the patterns of experiences that you're hearing from your clients
Mm-hmm.
about their experience in the workplace and
Mm-hmm.
feeling burnout and that they don't belong?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things is helping clients to normalize their experiences, right? Like, so if you're saying things like, "Am I crazy?" Like, no, I have to provide you some education. You are absolutely experiencing gaslighting, right? If you are
Mhm,
trying to express
mhm,
yourself in a meeting, call something out, and somebody's telling you you're being too sensitive, or maybe even somebody saying, "Oh, is it really that bad?" Because these are things you might also hear from your colleagues as
mhm,
well, really
mhm,
downplaying the emotions that you're going through. And another thing, I was thinking about this in a different space I was in most recently about this idea of professionalism. It's like professionalism is starting to give microaggression, because
mhm,
it's like now you're throwing out the word professionalism to say that a Black woman expressing her emotions around something that is frustrating, absolutely a microaggression. All of a sudden now this is not professional behavior, right? So
mhm,
and that's a lot of the themes that I hear from my clients as well,
mhm,
or even some of these stereotypes that are commonly associated with Black women, like being a strong Black woman. This even
mhm,
this mamification comes in, especially when I have clients who work in the higher education, the collegiate space, where you are maybe you have even more students who want to come to you because of how you present yourself, and you end up
mhm,
doing more work with less recognition. So these are
mhm,
some of the things that I see as themes that pop up with my clientele, these typical stereotypes, and this whole idea of trying to like fight the angry Black woman. I think that becomes frustrating for Black women as well, because it's like you don't even really know what to do with those emotions, because you feel some type of way, you're
mhm,
scared to express that because you
mhm.
don't want to be labeled as this angry Black woman. So
Exactly.
now these physiological symptoms are popping up. Now you have stomach aches
Now
and
you're swallowing it. You're
right, you're
swallowing it every
swallowing
day.
that tension in your body, and it's
Mhm.
because you don't really have a place to, you haven't had a place to express those things, which is
Right.
why I'm glad when folks do end up signing up for therapy and coaching, and if it's not with me, maybe some other resource that they're utilizing,
Mhm,
because you need a space to be able to express these emotions. Because like we just talked about again with that fear, your community might not understand. If you got
right.
this good job, your family and might not understand at first, especially if you're like a first generation
Mhm,
person or something of that nature. People are not gonna be like, what? Like, do you know what our ancestors been through? Right? Like you're
right,
hearing those type of messages just to keep you in a space that is just not healthy for you. So yeah, those are
right.
some of the things that I hear ongoing from my clientele.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
And when you think about, the importance in therapy that we are able to reality test with our
Mhm.
clients and help them name what they're experiencing, that's gaslighting. No, that's not you tripping. Because what happens is that many of us, if we don't reality test, then we start self gaslighting ourselves. And that's very
Mhm.
dangerous because you're like, oh, I am tripping. There's something wrong with
Mhm.
me, that I'm the problem, because that's
Mhm.
what they want you to think. They want you to self
Yes.
gaslight yourself
Yes.
because it's a way to control you, that mental
Yes.
instability. And so
Yes.
that's why therapy is so important. Can you
Mhm.
just talk a little bit about, because people watching this right now may say,
Mhm.
oh, I got a coach, I don't need therapy. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the distinction between coaching and therapy from your
Mhm.
perspective?
Yeah, yes, I would definitely say so. Therapy is, I would say, is more, I don't say past oriented, but in some ways it is. Like you do a deeper dive into some of the patterns and thought processes that might even bring you to this point, right? So when you think about this idea of being the strong Black woman and why you feel the need to continue to survive in this workplace, it's because maybe these are the messages that you received way back in childhood, or maybe these are things that you observe from different women in your family. So whether they told you these things verbally or they showed you these things by their behaviors, you have, so it's going to take a while to say, okay, I'm just going to automatically think differently. It's like, no, you have been taught either verbally or from examples of this is what has been going on and this is the way that you should act and perform as a Black woman. I would say coaching is different because it's definitely more future oriented. So again, as we talk about this idea of a sustainability plan or a safety plan, I would say coaching really would dive deeper into how do we create that? What does that look like? What are the
Hmm.
tools and techniques that you need to utilize to do it? And coaching is shorter as well. I would say
Right.
therapy is definitely more long term.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
please don't confuse, like if there's some deeper issues you need to work on,
Yes.
coach is not the person to do that with.
Mm-hmm.
And a therapist is a licensed therapist is somebody who is kind of regulated by the state. You need to go to
Yes.
one who is licensed to practice in your
Mm-hmm.
state. Okay, so just be mindful of
Mm-hmm.
that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering about the impact for Black women of the day to day of kind of the swallowing your pride,
Mm-hmm.
of like the day to day of the micro insults and the microaggressions. And I
Mm-hmm.
just remember like so many days of just thinking to myself, like, oh, I wish I could have said so and so,
Mm-hmm.
right? And almost to the point where the swallowing, I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering ways that that might turn into a sense of self-blame or maybe
Mm-hmm.
self-loathing, and
Mm-hmm.
how that may impact maybe self-medicating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms
Mm-hmm.
of drinking, eating, shopping,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
let's talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's like you're developing a coping mechanism still,
Right,
but it ends up being an unhealthy coping mechanism to deal with the issues that you're having at work. And now you have two issues, right? Now you have
right,
an addictive behavior, plus these issues that you were having ongoing at work have not changed.
right.
So yeah, that's definitely something that I've seen in the work that I've done, and I've just noticed in research too about folks utilizing these different avenues to cope with the negative experiences that they're having.
Hmm. And then you mentioned, I don't know if I've heard this before. You said mammification.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, yes.
can
So
you elaborate
again,
on that?
right. Yeah. So again, in my work, so in my dissertation, I use Black feminist thought, which is a theory curated by Patricia Hill Collins to study the lived experiences and the of Black women. So within that, she talks about the idea of stereotype threat and stereos that are commonly um, assigned to Black women. So we all know about this idea of the mammy, right? That emerged during slavery and how it still can be assigned to Black women, right? So you end up doing twice as much work, or people are looking at you like this mom type, right? So even again with how I see it show up in the higher education environment is more students and not that and that we do enjoy that work as a former
Mhm.
student affairs professional. You do enjoy your working with students.
Mhm.
However, you become even more overwhelmed when you're still experiencing these negative experiences from work,
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
toxic in work environment. Plus, you have all these additional folks dependent upon you because more people see you in this role as a helper. I even see that showing up in dating where they talk about, oh, if you need somebody to stick up for you, go turn to a black woman, or how a black woman can rescue you, and all of these things. And that's where the label of mamification comes from, because it's like you're playing this mom role to all these different people, but it's like who is taking care of you? Where are you allowed to
Right.
rest if everybody is resting on you?
Ooh, okay. And I'm also thinking about if a Black woman kind of really steps into that role, that might make it even harder to leave the job because you might
Yes.
feel that so many people are dependent on you and
Mm-hmm.
feel that, oh, if I leave, then all these students
Yes.
or all these people,
Yes.
I'll be letting them down. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how can Black women work through that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If they're in a
Mm-hmm.
toxic job that's harming them
Mm-hmm.
and they are struggling with that feeling of
Mm-hmm.
guilt in some
Mm-hmm.
ways
Mm-hmm.
about leaving and sense of responsibility for other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like them
Yeah.
felt like that, almost like a martyrdom, right?
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah. So absolutely. So that's like one of the things that we talked about, like the difference between therapy and coaching. I would say in therapy, it would look like doing some unlearning, right? Like, where
Mhm.
does this need to be in this role? Where does this come from? Is this something that you was taught? Is this something that you observed? And then what does it look like to put yourself first without guilt? Because you're right. I have heard that a lot of times in the work that I do, where clients will know that this is a toxic environment, and there are opportunities out there for them to shift and leave, but they don't want to leave folks hanging, right? Whether it be a colleague or a clientele, you don't want to leave these people hanging. But at the same time, it's like, with all these physiological symptoms that you're naming, all these mental health issues that you're naming, how much are you willing to almost like break yourself in some sense to meet this imaginary deadline that you've given yourself, where you do have a plan, where you probably could leave sooner, but you feel so much guilt from for wanting to put yourself first. So it definitely requires some intense unlearning and some intentional putting yourself first in order to be able to make that move. And then you still might have a little guilt when you follow through with it, but the
Yeah,
plan is the follow through.
exactly. And
Mhm.
self-preservation comes before anything else anyway.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So
Yes.
can we talk a little bit for Black women who are watching this right now, either live
Mhm.
or replay? What are
Mhm.
some of the signs and symptoms they can look out for that might indicate that they are in burnout, moving towards burnout,
Mhm.
or maybe that they're in a work environment that it's not the place for them? Like that,
Mhm.
there's not a sense of belonging there, that they
Yes.
don't belong there.
Yes, yes, yes. So I would say one of the things like that I named that I was experiencing is like feeling this drain, like as soon as you get to pull up at work, right? You are feeling all of these symptoms come up, whether it be having a headache or a stomach ache is a big one I hear from people who have anxiety. Like, you're getting these symptoms, you have this tension, and you really don't know where it is coming from. Then maybe you're constantly overthinking your interactions with others. You're
Mhm.
being left out of conversations or decision making. You're receiving maybe vague feedback without support, or feeling like you have to shrink yourself to avoid conflict. So a lot of times I work with folks who are great thought leaders, who have awesome ideas, but they've got to the point where they just don't even feel like they can share these things with their colleagues because it doesn't feel safe. So it's not just about not feeling safe emotionally, but it's like you don't even feel safe professionally to be able to share an idea, because you don't know if it's going to be taken seriously, or is it maybe it's going to be taken, like somebody else might try to copy it. Like, it's just so much negativity that can come up from it. So if you are experiencing some of those symptoms, it is definitely an indication that you are experiencing some burnout. I would also say another one that I saw either from my clientele or in my dissertation research is people talking about like high blood pressure.
Mhm.
Um, Things like that, which are, again, when we're naming what are the stressors in your life, the main ones are at work. So those are other signs that I've seen from some of my clientele that they have been experiencing. And like you said, it goes back to that addictive behavior where you're overeating as an outlet that can also contribute again to the high blood pressure. So all these different factors that are coming up. Or if you're the type of person who, I know I have a clientele who like to work through lunch, right? I would say that's either a sign of burnout or you're heading very quickly to burnout. It's like, what are you doing within that hour that you can't take a break that's going to contribute that much to the work that you're doing to now to the point that you're going to get burned out even faster. So those are some of the things that I have seen that either come up either in research, I would say even conversations, since I'm constantly surrounded by Black women, or either professionally in my clientele as well.
Yeah, and that's such a classic sign of burnout is that that's the problems that we often don't recognize until we're way into it because we think, oh, you know what, I'm feeling depleted, I'm feeling this way, let me just work harder. And
Yeah.
that's a classic sign of burnout, right? The other part that we just kind of touched upon is the fact that so many of us are getting harmed due to the chronic stress of these workplaces. It goes against why many of us stay at these workplaces, right? So we stay because of the income and because of the healthcare benefits, right? And I'm quoting Stephanie Perry. She was like, first of all, a job that harms you is not a good job. And if we're accessing these so-called good healthcare benefits, but the job is making us sick because that's how we're accessing healthcare benefits, that doesn't make sense. So it's very important for us to really interrogate that. Like, wait a minute, I have high blood pressure. Well, what's the source of the stress? The job. Well, but I don't want to leave a job because of these good healthcare benefits. It does not make sense. So again, it's very important for us to look at the source of the stress. So for us to think about, because we've been talking quite a bit about the importance for Black women to start exit planning, right? Like, don't just jump out and just leave unless you're like in immediate danger or something like that. But exit planning. Do you have any suggestions for Black women who are in the exit planning process? What are some coping strategies they can do while they're still at the job that can help them as they're exit planning or they're starting the process?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I would say setting clear boundaries at work could be helpful, right? So it might look like you said, one of the things that I feel like is an ongoing thing that they said, you work hard, you get rewarded with more work, right? So it's like while you are in this plan trying to find something else, see where you might be doing too much. Is, for example, like we just talked about, working through lunch, checking emails after 5 or whatever the cutoff time is for your workplace. Like, where are you doing too much that you maybe can lessen to help deal with your stressors? And I know we have talked about maybe like your support system, some of them speaking out of fear with their support, projecting their fear onto you, but there are still external support systems that are available who very much align with who you are. So I think one of the few good things to come out of COVID is all of these virtual spaces that exist where it might look at the form of group coaching or a group therapy or finding folks or mentors and things of that nature. Like, even if you are connecting with folks on LinkedIn to find a mentor, there are people who have been in the journey in the place that you have been that you can reach out to, can also provide support for you as you navigate what this looks like. And we already talked about taking these micro breaks to protect your energy. So again, taking a lunch, if it looks like taking a short break at different periods throughout the day, going for a walk, different things like that, stepping outside of your office. You can take a lunch, don't take a lunch in your office. Like, changing the environment up can be helpful as well. And another thing I would say is to document patterns of interactions. And that's more so of like with a HR type of thing. These different things that you're saying you're experiencing, making sure you have them documented. And then I think daily affirmations could be helpful as well. So some of those ones that I encourage my clients to say might be something like, I can show up authentically without shrinking myself. And then just different affirmations that you feel would be helpful for you to, again, help you as you know you are creating this exit plan and you have this action strategy available to you. But these affirmations can just help rebuild that self-esteem that you might have really been torn down by being in this workspace, and then to help you shift your mindset.
Yes, I think that's very, very important. And I think that starting to think these things. But I also think it's important to have a boundary for you at home, right? So
Mhm.
be mindful of how much you talk about work at home, right? So
Yes.
like limit how much you talk about it with your friends and your family. Like have a boundary. Maybe have
Mhm.
your home be your sanctuary space.
Yes.
But just think about all these things and think about this is a temporary situation for you.
Mhm.
This is not
Mhm.
the end for
Mhm.
you. Like you have choice, you have options, even though it may not seem like it, that you
Mhm.
really have options. I think it's important to remind ourselves of that, even
Yes.
though it may not feel like it. It may not feel
Mhm.
like it. And then to also do things like daily that will help us, like music or movement, or just
Yes.
like little things we can do every day that might help us, right?
Mhm.
So can we talk a little bit? I want to veer a little bit because it kind of reminds me of conversations I've had with a number of my guests on this channel. Because
Mhm.
I heard you say something earlier about when you were planning to leave, you talked to some colleagues as well. Okay.
Mhm.
So I've mentioned, on my channel that, at my previous toxic job that I still have friends from that job that I'm still close to.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yet, I also met some people there who unfortunately were other Black women who betrayed me. Okay.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I always say use discernment, right? Now,
Yes.
that might be a little lively with this because
Mhm.
there's mixed opinions about this. So some
Mhm. Mhm.
you never make friends at work, come to
Mhm.
work to just work, right?
Mhm.
What are
Mhm.
your thoughts about colleagues and telling them about your experiences or getting validation from them? That's one question. The
Mhm.
second question is, what are your thoughts about ways that colleagues can offer support if they see that you're being targeted in the
Mhm.
workplace?
Mhm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I would say I do not subscribe to the notion that you cannot make develop relationships at work, right? You have so many things in common with these people already, right? You both are interested in a certain field, so and you're at work for so many hours out of the day that naturally some friendships can form. I still very much have relationships with colleagues that I've built at all the different jobs that I have been in, especially these toxic ones that I've left in the last 4 or 5 years. So I definitely think that you can have, like you said, have some discernment, but being able to understand what does it look like to be able to trust and build a relationship with this person, how they're presenting themselves in ways that I feel like this might be, I could develop more than just a work relationship with this person. Maybe it can turn in a flourish into an actual friendship. And in terms of colleagues, when you're realizing someone is being targeted, allyship is always important, right? So I talked about that example of being in a staff meeting and someone you're calling out something and your emotions or what you're experiencing is being minimized. If that colleague sees this happening, it could be helpful in that moment to be an ally, to say, oh no, actually I understand what you're saying. Just being able to validate the person. Because I think one of the things that I experienced in my last toxic job was I had colleagues who recognized the issues that were happening in this one meeting I was describing, this anti-racist event or whatever we were trying to do. And the people didn't say anything during the meeting. They ended up hitting me up later on to say, oh, I'm sorry you experienced this. Here's a resource, an app or something, a resource. Like, I don't need that from you. I already have that type of support system who can support me emotionally. For you as a
Hmm.
person who claims to be an ally, who
Hmm.
recognizes these behavior, what I need you to do is to show up in these meetings and don't just leave me hanging. So that would be something that I would suggest if you're a person who maybe you're not being targeted, but you recognize that your colleague is,
Hmm.
then be an ally. Call those things out in that meeting, in
Hmm.
that space.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I also, Michelle, I think it was in the conversation I had with Cheryl last week about, sometimes your coworkers are scared to support you because they may see you're being targeted and they may recognize, uh-oh, I don't want to align with her
Mm-hmm.
because if I align with her, I'm going to be next, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, the workplace bully, very vindictive. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I have compassion for people who were scared and I didn't expect anybody to stand up with me like, rah, 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 we're going to take down the system. I didn't expect that.
Right.
However, what I did expect was, off to the side or a text or a call, girl, I'm sorry you're going through this, or,
Mm-hmm.
how you doing? Something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
what many of us experience in the workplace is that when we're feeling targeted,
Mm-hmm.
that many of us know that our colleagues are seeing what's happening, they're
Mm-hmm.
witnessing it, and they're not saying anything. Like
Yes.
they're just looking, and they're
Mm-hmm.
just like, and then they try to distance themselves from us. I've heard that from so many of my Black women clients, therapy and
Mm-hmm.
coaching clients, that other people will just stay, they'll look,
Mm-hmm.
and they will distance themselves as if you're the problem.
Right.
So I
Right.
think it's important, again, the discernment is important, but also the painful understanding that
Mm-hmm.
this is part of the process too, that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to
Mm-hmm.
lose people in this
Mm-hmm.
process. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to lose people. You're going to lose people.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Whitley, can you share if there's a Black woman watching this discussion right now
Mm-hmm.
and she is feeling crispy at her job, she is feeling
Mm-hmm.
burned up, like she does not
Mm-hmm.
belong,
Mm-hmm.
what words of wisdom can you offer to her?
Yeah, the main thing I will offer is you are not imagining it. You are not weak, you're not imagining it. And really being able to, I think, to hopefully validate what you're experiencing from me or Dr. Kamani or some of these other experiences that people have talked about as toxic jobs. I think a lot of times people need to be validated that what they are going through is not made up, right? You need clarity. It is not failure. You deserve to be in environments where you are strong, where you can be strong and authentic and that you're valued. And it's okay to say, okay, now I need to take steps to protect myself, whether that's creating a sustainability plan that lasts for however many months for the job that you're doing to meet the goals that you want to do, or creating an exit plan because you know that you might need to leave once you realize this environment is no longer for you, and being able to reclaim your energy. That's what
Mhm.
I would like to share with the Black woman who's listening and is going through this experience of being in a toxic job.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to take a step back and because I think because maybe I've been doing this for so long now,
Mm-hmm.
and talking to so many Black women, I think I'm a little jaded now. But
Mm-hmm.
can you share what would a job environment look like where there is a culture of belongingness? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
would that even look like? Because again, I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
jaded at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What would it look like?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think a culture of belonging would look like if what we're talking about, if something occurs, then there are people who are allies in that spaces where they can call these things out. And then leadership supports that, right? And then together you name the harm and you are able to create and make changes and action items and changes from that. I think it would be an environment where you feel protected, where you can share your ideas and not be ashamed, where you can stand out and thrive and you're rewarded, whether it's financially or I don't know, some type of reward. Like you feel reward, you feel affirmed, you feel like you can just show up and be yourself without worrying about is something going on behind your back, or are you being gaslit, or if someone is trying to be out to get you. All these thoughts that come up where you're over explaining and you're overthinking different interactions and emails and all these things. You won't feel that when you are in a very supportive environment. And I have experienced that before. One of my first higher education institutions that I worked for, I very much felt that. And I think the main thing was my boss. I think one of the main things that I have identified in the different environment that I worked in is when the leadership is one that is supportive and is pouring into you, that can make a world of difference in how you show up and how you feel coming to work each day. So that's what I feel like would be an environment that would be thrive when you can thrive in and would be affirming to who you are.
Okay. Now let's take another step back because
Mm-hmm.
I see a question in the chat about belongingness, like a question mark about that.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about belongingness, can we
Mm-hmm.
just define exactly what we mean or
Mm-hmm.
operationalize exactly what we mean
Mm-hmm.
about belongingness?
Yeah, when you think about belonging in a workspace, it's meaning that you feel like that you're a part of that place. Like you don't feel like an outsider. Like it's not like I'm just showing up at work and my name is on the door and I'm on the website or whatnot, but I don't truly feel like this is a space where I can thrive in. So when you feel like you belong to a space, is where mentally you feel like you belong here, like mentally, physically, authentically, you can show up authentically. This is what belonging looks like. So if you're in a space where you don't feel like you should be here, you can't thrive here, you feel like you're the enemy number one, where you don't feel supported by your boss, you don't feel supported by your colleagues, it can create this idea that I don't actually belong in this space. I'm not actually a part of this space.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing
Mhm.
that. And what about for Black women who might feel like, or actually, what about Black women who might be fearful even acknowledging that she's feeling burnout
Mhm.
or that she doesn't belong or any of these feelings, or even acknowledging the harm of the toxic job? She might be even fearful of acknowledging that because of the vicarious traumatization, the witnessing of over 300,000 Black women recently losing their jobs. So she might be fearful or stifled and even expressing that emotion because she's thinking this job market is unstable. I could lose my job at any point. I should
Mhm.
just stay put. I shouldn't even think about leaving. Like
Mhm.
very much of a fear response.
Mhm.
What would you say, or what words of wisdom would you have for Black women who feel like they should not even express or even connect to any emotion
Mhm.
of how they're feeling about their job because of what's happening right now in the job market and even just politically?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I would validate those women as well. I would validate that I can definitely understand why you are feeling that way, why you feel like the need to just, like you said, safety. It feels like safety. I hear this
Mhm.
all the time where people talk about the devil that you know, right? So
Oh, yeah.
your job is, you know about this toxic job. You don't really know what this other toxic job might offer, but you're
Right.
familiar with this. And then I would say that if you don't address it, it's going to show up in other ways. So, like we
True.
already talked about, these addictive behaviors, whether you find yourself eating more, or you find yourself using some types of substance to cope, or you're having high blood pressure, migraines, all these different things, stomach aches, all these other things, symptoms coming up. It's because you have not properly addressed those the issues that the toxic job is causing you. So
Mhm.
I think that whether you choose to address it directly or not, it's going to show up in some ways that's going to be unavoidable.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. 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 Because you're
Mm-hmm.
not looking at the source of the problem.
Exactly.
Mhm, mhm.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. So, Dr. Whitley, before we go read the community chat, which has been very
Mm-hmm.
active,
Uh-huh.
the
Uh-huh.
community chat. So,
Uh-huh.
can you please share about services that you offer?
Yeah, yeah. So this upcoming 2026, I'll be launching a coaching program to address these issues. So my coaching program is for the strong Black woman who feels burnt out, feel like they don't belong, and we've defined what belonging looks like, and they're struggling to show up authentically. So we're going to be focused on reclaiming energy and confidence and clarity, so that you can thrive without shrinking yourself. So we define what belonging is today. If you feel like you're a person who does not belong in your workspace, you're feeling crispy and burnt out and this constant pressure to perform, I feel like my coaching program is exactly the space that is created for you. So helping high achieving Black women break out of survival mode, stop over functioning. And what I realized too in the work that I do is, again, it doesn't just show up in the workplace. It might show up in your relationships as well. So really just giving you an idea of how to navigate that. So I'll be bringing my clinical background that I've described, been a therapist for over 10 years, my research on Black women and racial trauma, and getting past the surface level to be able to address patterns, setting boundaries, emotional labor, and all the things.
Thank you, thank you. So, I will
Mm-hmm.
leave this up here
Mm-hmm.
so that you all can check out her coaching program. And when does it start?
Yeah, it starts in January. It starts in January. Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay. So, check it out. Check it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's on the screen. It's also going to be the description section of my YouTube video. Okay. So, I'm going to read the community chat now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I see Cheryl. Shout out to Black in Business to Growth
Yes.
Cohort 8. Yes, indeed. We're about to graduate, everybody. Um,
Yes. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
being in these toxic work environments is completely exhausting. I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
agree. Greetings from Baltimore. Hello. Hello. I'm so eternally grateful that we have this healing space so we
Mm-hmm.
don't have to feel so isolated and alone. Thank you, Cynthia. Dr. Whitley, you mentioned phoning your mama. I related to that. I phoned and still do my mama when I went through my experiences in challenging toxic work environments as a mental health professional. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. Yes, we need to get that circle of support. This makes me
Yes.
think about an impact on our support system too.
Mhm.
Yes, right. So when we think about the impact of the stress of the toxic job, it's not just
Mhm.
it impacts, it has a residual impact. Yes.
Yes.
Black
Yes.
women need coursework when we are undergrad and grad schools in order to prepare us for what to anticipate in these racist, toxic work environments. So
Mhm.
true. You know, I was
Mhm.
asking Marissa about this. You are
Mhm.
in my head. I was talking to Marissa about this. So true.
Mhm.
Black
Mhm.
women's souls and spirits are exhausted because we're in it. Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Discerning why
Mhm.
pivoting is critical. Yes,
Yes.
planning can mitigate the fears, plans to keep from being frozen, take action. Sis, liberate yourself from the toxic environment. Agreed. Black women's
Mhm.
soul spirits are exhausted because we're in work environments that are completely out of alignment with who we are. It's a
Mhm.
detriment to your being a person.
Yes.
Absolutely. Greetings from Burrell, Worldwide, Beverly Hills. Hello. I'm tamping down on our feelings creates diseases on our bodies. Let's
Mhm.
see. People expect you to have a mother role, and when you don't, people are uncomfortable. They want
Yes.
you to play
Yes.
that mammy role, yes,
Yep. Mhm.
or a strong black woman role, right? All the time,
Yes.
yeah. They want
Absolutely.
to pigeonhole you into stereotype. Trauma, trauma.
Mhm.
My form of toxicity is feeling like I've outgrown my position. Wow.
Mhm.
That's deep. That's
Mhm.
deep. You want to comment on that, Dr. Whitley?
Yeah, yeah. So, if you felt like you've outgrown your position, then you probably have, right? Like
Yes.
that feeling is coming from somewhere. So again, being able to explore what does pivot look like. So it could be like what we're doing and opening your own businesses and creating spaces, or it could like being pivoting into a whole different area. I know numerous folks who have left the higher education spaces are now doing like ed tech and working for companies, and again thriving, feeling much better there. Because if you've ever worked in the higher ed space, you know that you might have to wear multiple hats, and then you go to this company and this is your one job. So that can help even mentally, where you can just feel different and better because you're in a different environment who supports you. So I definitely understand where you're coming from.
I'm curious about your comment because, when I think about outgrowing your position, like
Mhm.
sometimes that's a sign, like you said, of growth, right?
Mhm.
Like it's time to move on.
Mhm.
And sometimes it feels like that position is stifling you. And
Mhm.
I've talked about that before. Like I felt like I was no longer growing in that position. I felt like I was like literally like I felt like not only grown, not I felt like I was stifled to the point where I was so understimulated that
Mhm.
I felt like I had to self-talk so I didn't fall asleep. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So
Right.
that was the toxicity for me because I felt like I had outgrown it and they were
Mhm.
trying to keep me in my place or put me in my
Mhm.
place, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's what you're referring to, is that they're trying to keep you in your place even
Mhm.
though you've outgrown it and you want to outgrow and there's no opportunities to grow. I'm not quite sure, but yes, I think that really speaks to you're ready to move. You're ready to move.
Right. And it might go back to that safety thing that we're talking about too, right? Like if your job has this level of benefits, again, you know you're familiar, you're
Mhm.
scared. It's a fear thing, is what I'm hearing. Like if you feel you're labeling it as toxicity, it might be a fear. I'm fearful to go out and see what other opportunities are out there because I feel like I've excelled so well in this space, and now it feels easy, and I'm scared to take a chance and maybe be in an environment that might be too overwhelming or too challenging.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Or again, just the fear of pivoting too, right? Just the
Yes.
fears. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I literally dragged myself into work. Oh, that was
Mm-hmm.
me. That was me. Oh,
Same. Same.
oh my God. It would be like a whole thing trying to get out the bed. Okay. It
Yes.
was bad,
Yes.
bad, bad.
Mm-hmm.
Get up earlier for your self-care instead of rushing to a job. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Step
Mm-hmm.
outside for a few minutes just to get some fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew the chat was going to say this. Coworkers are not your friends. Coworkers are not
Mm-hmm.
your
Uh-huh.
friends. I
Uh-huh.
say that to commodity coworkers where I am are not my friends. We have different perspectives, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't feel comfortable, and again, I say use discernment. If you feel like these people are not your friends, got you, right? But if
Right.
there's some of you who feel like, you know what, I'm using discernment, some of
Mm-hmm.
the people here seem cool, again, it's up to you. Okay.
Exactly.
If you have one close friend, you are lucky and they will see your mistreatment. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
See, people are scared to show up for you. Yep. So soon
Mm-hmm.
there's retaliation in the workplace. Your
Mm-hmm.
colleagues, management, everyone is scared. So true. Abuse of
Mm-hmm.
power. Yes. Never underestimate the power of allyship at work. We're all
Yes.
human and can show up for each other during hopeless times. Agreed. Too many workplaces exude a culture of toxicity that's ingrained in the fiber of the system. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about. The system is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one or
Mm-hmm.
two, it's a whole system is toxic.
Right.
Discipline
Right.
and management pets. Ooh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Establish firm, clear boundaries in the job for your own well being. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
And take your work email off your phone. So true.
Yes.
I tell
Yes.
my clients,
Yes.
take it off.
Right. I had a hard time with that.
Don't look at that. Don't look at it. And when you document, because I'm just quoting the anti-HR lady, she
Mm-hmm.
talks about when you document, she says document every day at
Mm-hmm.
home,
Mm-hmm.
not on any work stuff, because
Mm-hmm.
that's work product. Don't do
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But document every day at home about just what happened at work, right? And then the anti-HR lady also talks about periodically send an email to your supervisor asking about your work performance. So it's documented
Mm-hmm.
that you have asked about your work performance, they have responded back. So they can come back and say, well, we had concern about your work performance. Oh, really? Well, in this date and this time, I
Mm-hmm.
asked you and you said XYZ. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to check out the anti-HR lady, everybody, if you have not already followed her.
Mm-hmm.
So many workplaces exude a culture of toxicity that is ingrained in the fiber of the system. The supervisors and managers perpetuate this dysfunction because they are trauma engulfed themselves. And let me just say this, a lot of these supervisors and managers are what I call true imposters, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're true
Mm-hmm.
imposters because many times they have not gained those positions from merit. They have gotten those positions based upon who they know, okay?
Yes.
And when
Yes.
they do that, they are terrified that
Mm-hmm.
people are going to find out that they don't have what it takes, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're the true imposters. So they engage in like this power hungry type of behavior to
Mm-hmm.
put people in their place. But I
Mm-hmm.
want to quote my dear friend Colette Elizabeth. She said these three things. Watch out for these three things, okay? So these are deeply insecure people. So watch out for three things. People who are insecure, incompetent, and immature,
Mm-hmm.
okay? When you see these three things and these supervisors and managers, they are likely to perpetuate the dysfunction because they are trying to mask their own incompetence and
Yes.
they're the imposters. And
Yes.
you showing up in your brilliance, you're about to show them up. Okay.
Right.
So you're gonna
Right.
make them look bad. You're gonna make them
Mm-hmm.
look bad in front of other people. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're making them feel bad because
Mm-hmm.
they're recognizing how incompetent and inept they are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
Mm-hmm.
watch out for those three qualities, but I could not agree with you more.
Mm-hmm.
When I felt belongingness at a temporary job, I felt like I was having the experience I had seen other coworkers had at my old job. And the
Mm-hmm.
difference was tremendous. Yes.
Wow.
The excellent insight. Yes. I'm grateful for this platform. Thank you both. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
watching. Black sisters, if you can't express your experience at work, please do not hold them in. Find your
Yes.
people who uplift you and to make the
Mm-hmm.
changes that will support your health. These symptoms are real. Agreed, agreed, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't think we will ever belong in any workplace. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Dr. Whitley?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely understand that. Also, one of the things I was thinking about too, and even preparing for this, is that
Mhm.
not every Black woman has an entrepreneurial spirit.
True, true, true.
Some of us want to not necessarily want to, you don't want to remain in toxic environments, but you want to be in certain environments. Like
Mhm,
representation is important to you.
mhm,
So I definitely can agree with that might be your experience and what that might look like from a work standpoint, what might be helpful for you. So that might look like having an entrepreneurial journey, but because not everyone wants that space, it's like, how do you, again, what is your plan for if you want to stay in these type of spaces? What does that look like to protect your mental health and still thrive in these environments?
And to decrease the likelihood that you end up in another toxic job. Because I think
Right.
a lot of us have had more than one toxic job. And the
Mm-hmm.
fear is, oh, if I leave this job, I'm going to end up in another toxic job anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I might as well
Mm-hmm.
just stay with the devil I know. So I'm
Yes.
so glad you said that, because
Mm-hmm.
something that Marissa and I are working on for the Job Liberation Summit for this year is to have tracks that focus on those who want to go to another job, and
Mm-hmm.
then those who want to go into entrepreneurship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not
Mm-hmm.
every Black woman who leaves a toxic job wants to have their own business.
Exactly.
We want to, go into another job. But again,
Right.
we want to decrease the likelihood that you go into another toxic job, because
Exactly.
we don't
Exactly.
want that for anybody, right?
Exactly.
I can relate. I'm a mom of one child. Trying to move to another job is hard because of the job market. Yes, I hear you,
Mm-hmm.
sis. And
Mm-hmm.
again, we recognize what the job market is like right now, and
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about things that we could start doing to
Mm-hmm.
start exit planning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the time may not be ideal right now,
Mm-hmm.
right, to leave, but it's ideal to start planning,
Right.
okay? And if you want more information about how to plan, the Job Liberation Virtual Summit is coming up in May. So you
Mm-hmm.
may want to get on the waiting list for that. So when we start announcing the doors are open, you'll be notified about that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes. The only way you could even put my work email on my phone is for them to pay this bill. Hilarious. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it, sis. I love the attitude.
Mhm.
Indeed, indeed. Okay. So, Dr. Willie, any last words before we finish for today that you want to share with our community?
Yes, yes, yes. This conversation has just been so great and so uplifting for me as well. And I just love the messages that you all are dropping in the chat and talking about your experiences and affirming where you are and where you need to be and where you hope to go. So again, if you are experiencing burnout, having issues with belonging, sign up for my coaching program. And I am just so happy to have this conversation with you. And I just really appreciate spaces like these because they're so very much necessary.
Agreed, agreed. Well, thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much, Dr. Whitley, for being my guest. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate
No
you.
problem.
Yes, and as a reminder to my Butterfly YouTube community for Black women, that again, I hope that I see you this Friday for our Sound Bowl healing for our private community. It will be Zoom, so check the YouTube community section that I'll post just for members. Okay, the Zoom information will be there. It will be this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. So if you would like to join our membership community, the information is going across the screen. It'll also be in the description section of this video. And also, members, please start reading Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey. We will have our book club, our virtual book club meeting on December 10th. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the support in the chat. And I also want to again thank everyone for me reaching 8,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for this community, so much healing in this space.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Please give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already turned the notification bell, please do so you know when I upload another video. And also, please share this video with at least 2 other Black women. Okay, everyone. Oh, and if you celebrate Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.